Fair warning right at the start of the video. This will be somewhat rambly and stuff like that, so if you don't like a little bit of rambling in your videos, this may not be for you, and no hard feelings, you're free to go if that's not your thing. Still here? Alright, so first things first, of course, if you want to learn about the artwork for some reason, you're free to go find links into it in the description, to the full image and all that stuff. But with that out of the way, I want to get right into the topic of the video, so let's just jump right into it. So this is a subject that has been talked about a lot, so rather than me strictly talking about how to find your art style, yada yada yada, I'll brush on it briefly, but I want to actually address some things that I don't see get talked about as much in relation to art styles, some things that might be kind of misconceptions, things that might be kind of like some beliefs that I think some beginner or even just amateur artists might have about art style and things like that. But of course, as with anything related to art or any creative field, this is all subjective. This is subjective stuff, so please take what I say with a grain of salt and don't take anything I say as gospel. This is what I've learned based on my experience and my thoughts and all that I've gathered. So while I may have a more experienced opinion, my word is not law. I'm by no means the best artist in the world, and again, so if you don't agree with something I say, that's totally fine. But first, I want to give the basic advice to any beginner or young artist who hasn't heard it before and is looking to develop an art style. Any young artist who's looking to become like the professionals, you go. But the best advice I could give to you in relation of art styles right now is before you worry about your art style, you should focus your effort on developing your skills and learning the basics of art before you ever worry about your artistic signature. In fact, you may find a solid base for your art style by just working on your anatomy, your line work, your shading, etc. Yes, creativity is something that has no rules, and I am of the passionate belief that there is nothing in art that is inherently wrong, like an inherently wrong strategy, whatever. However, any professional will tell you that at the end of the day, with anything related to creativity and art and things like that, before you can break the rules, you have to know them. And that is definitely something for art. You should worry about like focusing on the basics, learning basic proportions, learning the basic rules of perspective and anatomy and lighting, shading, whatever. You should learn that stuff before you ever worry about making it unique. Because if you don't know the basics, then you're not going to make things unique in the right way, if that makes sense. You always need something to start with. So if you're just starting out with art, don't worry about having an original art style. That will come with time. You should focus on your skills and just learning about art and figuring out art before you ever worry about art styles and that mumbo jumbo. However, there is always a point we reach where we understand the basics and we understand the rules and we're ready to start breaking them and experimenting with style and having a ball. So here's my basic advice, my basic general advice for that. I mean, obviously I'll have, if for each person it'll be a little bit different, but my general advice is to look at styles you like and figure out what you like and what you don't like about them. Try drawing in the vein of those styles. If you post them online, be honest about your source, but mimicry will help you understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you and help you notice things you didn't before. Try drawing in ways that you haven't before. Try experimenting with ways of coloring and lining. Experimentation and getting out of your comfort zone is the key to really finding your art style and just blossoming as an artist in general. So don't be afraid of trying something different. If it doesn't work, well, you've one step closer to finding what does. So don't be afraid to go break eggs, and if you really want to find your art style, experimenting and looking at your inspirations is the key way to figure out where you stand and where you can go. But there are some things surrounding art styles and such that I believe are kind of misconceptions, maybe not always misconceptions, but things I think that hold people back, or just that some beginner amateur artists kind of misconstrue and things like that. For starters, there's this sort of misconstrued idea many more beginner artists have, that an art style is about proportions more than anything else. And I just noticed this with how, like, some people will, not even just artists, but sometimes people who want to critique art, I notice this a lot. It's just, I think some people are very, very hyper focused on how anatomy is exaggerated in certain styles, that they don't realize that art style is much, much more layered than that, pardon the pun. When you factor in things like line art, coloring, shading, composition, reoccurring themes, hell, even how a specific artist tends to design characters, all of that can be included as an artistic signature or a style, and all of that can make even the most similar art styles vary in the slightest of ways. It's all of these things put together that make a style. It's not just how you exaggerate in arms and legs. It's not just how big your eyes are or how small they are. It's all of these together that make your style unique, and all these other details. So when you're developing your style, if you feel like you just aren't finding anything unique, try doing things that aren't in relation to anatomy. Try coloring in a different way. Try shading in a different way. Try different brushes, different things like that. That all goes into an art style, as well as proportions. Yes, proportions are obviously a big visual part of it, but there is a lot more that goes into a completed piece of artwork than just how someone stylizes a body. Although, while we're talking about uniqueness and originality, we should address the fact that you shouldn't stress about making your art style the most original and unique style in the universe. We are living in a time where two people can develop totally separate of one another and have similar art styles. It happens, and it's not wrong to have a style similar to someone else's. In fact, art styles aren't stagnant. They constantly develop with you. While your style could be similar to someone else's one day, in a year, as you both grow and improve as artists, they can become totally different. In all honesty, at the end of the day, art styles are a mesh of all the styles you are inspired by, and that's always growing and getting better as you refine it. So don't worry if your art style isn't the most unique one in the world. That shouldn't be your focus. You should always focus on putting out your best work and improving your craft more than you having a groundbreaking and unique style. That sort of thing can and will come with time and practice, and it's not always necessary to have a unique art style to make good art. As a bit of a side tangent to go off my form a little bit, it really does bug me how many people out there seem to make such a big deal that some people tend to have similar art styles to one another because they tend to be inspired by similar things, or they tend to like similar trends, and they act as if that's somehow a big part of your art that's going to ruin it somehow. And it always amuses me because all I can think of is how many famous painters and things, they didn't have an art style. They painted realism, and it's fantastic realism. But I mean, Leonardo da Vinci, he painted portraits from life. That's what? So was he a bad artist because he didn't have a totally unique original art style like Picasso did? And what even amuses me more is that Picasso at the time, people didn't really like his art. People didn't admire it because they thought it was weird, It just, I see this trend every now and then where people will get on others because they dare be inspired by the same thing, or they dare find the same things appealing in art, whether it be how you draw noses or how you draw anatomy and things like that. It's not good criticism. It's not good criticism to say your art style is exactly like everyone else's, therefore you must change it. That's not good criticism. If you should criticize people when it comes to art styles, if your only argument for why their art is bad is because it's a style I don't personally like that looks similar to how other people draw, that's not really good criticism. If you're going to critique someone's work and suggest how to improve it, maybe suggest you should focus more on the more objective things, like if something doesn't look right, if something seems off balance, off kilter, if something looks too large or too small than it should be, things like that. You shouldn't critique an art style based on what you subjectively don't like about it. I do see this a lot with things like people talk about Tumblr art style, which that could be a totally its own video altogether. People will talk about that, and I don't want to get too deep into it. But people treat that like that's somehow in itself, calling something a Tumblr art style is somehow its own criticism. Even though that is a subjective term, the definition seems to change depending on who you talk to. It's not, no one acknowledges how it's bad. People just say it's a Tumblr art style, therefore it is automatically bad somehow. And I'm not speaking on whether it's good or not, but who cares? It's the same like anything else. Anime has similar trends in it, and those art styles can vary wildly. Cartoons can have similar elements to them, but they can still vary widely in detail. Just because a trend with art styles is popular with something, that doesn't mean that the art is suddenly bad because it follows a trend, or that because the person decides, hey, I kind of like drawing things this certain way. I know a lot of other people do it, but that's what I like, especially because there are only so many ways you can stylize a human body before it doesn't even look like a person anymore. So that could be its own video for another day, but I just want to say style is a lot more than just originality. Again, it's hilarious because guess what? Realism's a thing. Are you going to tell me that realistic art is bad because it looks like real life and that therefore it is not original because everyone looks like real life? I don't know. It's just, again, it's its own video, I'm sure, but just don't, you can't put so much weight on art style based on how original it is, you know? There's so much more to art than just how original the style is, especially when someone's only learning. Again, like I said, style is fluid. Style changes as someone improves. So just because a style looks like someone else's at one point, in about a year it could look totally different as as both people change and improve. So again, can be its own video for another day, but just don't put so much weight on an art style based on how unique and exceptional it is. There are exceptional art styles out there, yes, and it's a brilliant thing, but not everyone has to be the most groundbreaking person ever. Some people just, sometimes it's fine to just draw how you like and not worry about how groundbreaking and new you are, because again, there's only so many ways you can stylize something before it just doesn't look good. Now, of course, after I say all that, what I say next may sound a little bit contradictory, but you have to hear me out a little bit. The next thing I should say is that you should never, ever use your style as an excuse not to improve in your artwork. Now, I will say there's a difference. I do believe passionately that there is a strong difference between doing art for fun and doing it as a career. As far as I'm concerned, if you are doing your art as a hobby, you just do it because it's fun for you. You don't care if people like it. You don't care if you go anywhere. You don't care if you get hired. You're not looking to be a professional artist. Then as far as I'm concerned, do whatever you want. It's your work. And if you're not looking to improve, then who cares? You know? But if you're looking to do artwork professionally, whether it is getting a career as a freelance artist, working for a company, working for a show, a movie, whatever, if you're looking to actually be a good artist, you can never use your art style as an excuse for not improving. Now, I will say this, there are exceptions, because some things are in fact stylistic choices, and that is purely subjective. The best example I can think of is things like giving a cartoon character 4 fingers rather than 5. That, for example, it's a stylistic choice. Someone could think it looks better on some characters than it does others, but at the end of the day, that is something that is an intentional stylistic choice. Again, I could make a whole other video just based on the whole like what is a stylistic choice and what isn't. But I don't want to go into a whole tangent about that. But at the same time, though, style is like anything else. Just because something is a stylistic choice doesn't mean it's the right stylistic choice or it's a good stylistic choice. Style, just like artwork in general, can be improved as well. You can make, just because you have a stylistic choice, it doesn't mean it's not at its best. You can improve how you do something in a style, and it might not be, again, it might not be the right one in the right direction you want to go. Again, if you're just doing something for fun and you like it and it works for you, then go for it. But if you want to be a professional, if someone tells you that they don't think something is working or something that looks wonky, you need to be open to the idea of improving it, of either doing it better or maybe changing what you do. Again, art style always changes. Just because it's a stylistic choice doesn't mean it can't be better. For example, just because I think examples aren't good, if someone tells you that your character looks off balance, like it looks like they're not weighted correctly, it looks like they're about to fall over at any second, if they say that, that is less of a problem of your style and more of a problem of basic things. So in that case, if you use your style as an excuse, it's not a very good excuse. On the contrary, if someone says something like maybe your necks look a little bit too long, that could be a stylistic choice. But, maybe it does look a little bit too long to some people, and maybe there's ways you can make it look better. Maybe you can adjust the way you do shoulders so the neck looks more like it belongs, or maybe you can do the head in a certain way so it looks more proportionate to the neck. Like I said, you can improve a stylistic choice. So if you ever get criticism of something, your first response shouldn't be, it's just my style. You should be able to back up that argument with reasoning and explanation. And at the same time, even if it is a stylistic choice, that's totally okay if it is, you have to be self-aware enough to know that, maybe I can make this stylistic choice better. You can improve your style just like you can improve art. So don't use your style as a shield against criticism. Because if you do, then you won't improve all that much and you'll start to become trapped by your own art style. In fact, speaking of being trapped by your own art style, the last thing I want to address is that you don't have to have one art style. It is perfectly fine, and I would even encourage you to have multiple ways that you draw things. To use myself as an example, I have a lineless style that is different from my normal line and shaded work. It's usually less shading, a little less depth, but it looks kind of neat. I actually have lineless chibis I do, and I enjoy those a lot. They're a lot different than what I normally do, but they're just kind of fun, and they take a long time, but they're very relaxing and kind of therapeutic a little bit, Chibis are technically a different style because of all the proportions. Just even though you might use the same shading and lining and all that sort of stuff, you change the way you do your proportions and things like that, and you have to change posing to accommodate that and all that. I also sometimes tweak how I draw my own characters depending on what I do. I tend to try to have a little bit more realism in my dramatic pieces, with the expressions and the poses, while in my more cartoony or more upbeat, energetic pictures, I try to have something a little bit more cartoony and a little bit more exaggerated. You see this a lot with my comic too. When I do expressions in my comic, mouths will very often kind of go off the face because that's what I'm going for. And I'm sure when I get to dramatic scenes in my comic, finally, the expressions will be a little bit more serious. But that's besides the point. And the reason I do this, of course, is because I think it kind of helps, what I'm going for in certain things, the little bit of more realism in a dramatic piece, to me, makes it a little bit more easy to connect to. And in cartoony pieces, that more exaggeration makes it a little bit more fun and a little bit more expressive. It's okay to have variation in your style. In fact, a lot of places you'll see actually want that, especially in in the professional world. In animation, for example, they want you to be able to draw in other people's styles, things like that. It's not bad to not have one specific style to your name. I know there's a really good artist, just to use someone who's not me for an example. There's a good artist, I think you say Yamio, whom I've followed for a little while. And to use her for example, she's very well known for doing chibis, chibi characters and stuff like that. And the thing is, though, she has many different styles of chibis that she's collected over the years, many different ways of doing them. Some where some of their legs are longer, some of them where she shades and colors them differently, things like that. So it's not bad to have multiple styles, to do things in multiple ways. In fact, that can help you develop as an artist and develop all of your styles altogether by doing different things, by trying different things, by training, like challenging yourself to draw in different ways. It can help you develop your art in general because it helps you notice things you didn't before, and it gets you out of that tunnel vision of trying to keep to one style. It's okay for your style to change. It's okay to draw differently and experiment. Like I said, experimentation is the key to really blossoming as an artist. If you want to do realism, do realism. If you want to draw something more cartoony, more out there, do that. If you want to try a different brush, do that. If you want to do lineless work, etc., etc., etc. If you want to paint, there's so much stuff out there to do. So don't become trapped by by one art style, because it will really limit how you improve as an artist. It will really slow you down. So if you want to have a little fun with it, just try new things and don't feel like don't feel like anyone's forcing you to have one style. If anyone tells you that you can only have one style and only ever one style, then that's not good advice. Just overall, the best thing I can tell you is don't get tunnel vision about your art style, and don't let focusing on trying to have an iconic original art style stop you from really stretching out and seeing all what you can do. And who knows, if you try it, maybe you'll find an art style you love and have so much more fun with. You never know. I know from experience, sometimes after a while, drawing the same thing over and over again gets a little bit boring, and it's when I find different ways to challenge myself while I'm drawing that I really start to have a lot more fun with it. And obviously that's just me, everyone's different, but that's my advice, is just don't let having quote unquote one art style limit what you can do and make things boring for you. Overall, though, art style isn't something to stress about, and to be honest, it's far more about what's appealing to you as opposed to what's unique. You should find what you enjoy and always try to improve it, and never be afraid to try new things. Even your favorite artists had their own inspirations, and their styles have improved greatly over time. So don't ever worry about being a professional right from the start. Have fun with your art. Don't be afraid to break some eggs, and if you just keep aiming to be better and better, your art style will come with you. Don't stress over art style. There is so much more to art than that. You should always prioritize making the best work you can make and improving as an artist, far more than worrying about all this art style mumbo jumbo stuff. So just have some fun. But with that being said, oh God. Do you hear that? Oh my God, it's Patreon shoutouts! Oh no! Oh my gosh, I have so many new patrons this month. That's crazy. Oh my God, I should try doing a new bit. 'Cause that'd be fun rather than just reading them all out, all just their name. So I guess let's just try to make it fun. So I guess to my $2 tier plus patron, I love you too. Specifically you, because you're my only $2 tier plus patron right now. Oh, but But those $5 tier plus patrons, I want to give them all high fives. Like Isabella GD, Gunmoon, Shadowcat Inc., Mick, and Starman. High fives for all of you. But oh my goodness, you know whose power levels are over $9? That'd be Pythoness, Hayden's Art, Nana Sprinkles, Twisted Disaster, Lauren Jago, FEMA, Casual Vandal, Miss Myserial, and Skyek too. That's just crazy. There's some powerful patrons right there. Oh, but with that out of the way, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next video, whatever it may be. Zodiac out.